Hello everybody, I'm Rowan6 with Rowan6 Entertainment, and welcome to a new series, a audiobook series of my fanfiction, The Dragon Hero Dovahkiin. The background art for this fanfiction is created by me. If you're interested in me doing art commissions for you, the link to my business Discord is down below. There's also a link to my community Discord, as well as the fanfiction link. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
The Dragon Hero Dovahkiin. Chapter 3, Home Sweet Home. After the group finished eating and leaving Big Benny's, they started to walk toward Izuku's apartment. God, the food there was extremely good, and they had so many different types of burgers. When we get to Izuku's place, I can't wait to finish trying all the ones I haven't tried. Lydia said with a large smile, holding a large bag of food in one hand and a soda in the other. Yeah, I had to admit it was really good. But did you really have to buy one of each and 3 large orders of fries? How in hell are you always able to eat so much and keep that figure? Serena asked, a little annoyed at Lydia. Oh, it's simple. I work out every day, so I mostly work off all of that. And Izuku says I have a high metabolism. Lydia says with a smile. High metabolism, what's that? I know I heard it somewhere before, but the Restoration School of Magic is not really my thing. Serena said, as she looked at Izuku. In Skyrim, the School of Restoration covers most of the medical field. It was mostly because people learning restoration magic needed to know how the body works so they could heal it. Alchemy, on the other hand, only needed a limited knowledge of the human body, since alchemy was more hands-off. And Izuku, who was not just a master of restoration magic, was born in an advanced society, which gave him more knowledge than anyone in Skyrim on various subjects, including this one. So with a long sigh, Izuku decided to explain. If your metabolism is high or fast, you will burn more calories at rest and during activities. A high metabolism means you'll need to take in more calories to maintain your weight. That's one reason why some people can eat more than others without gaining weight. And if my theory is correct, the majority of Nords have it. Izuku says in what his companions dubbed his lecture mode. Wait, does that mean I will get it, since before I was a vampire I was a Nord? Serena asked with curiosity. I doubt it, well, at least not anytime soon. Izuku says in thought. What do you mean? Lydia asked, now curious. Serena is currently a crossbreed between a Nord and a vampire. When I used the diagnostic spell on her, I could tell her systems were a lot more efficient than any other person. So she needs less food to operate, unlike you, Lydia, who needs more food to operate. Then the fact that her previously inactive organs, due to the result of her previously being undead, are now active. So she's going to eat very little for a while. Izuku said in a way that she could understand. Izuku knew Lydia was intelligent, but on subjects like this she simply could not wrap her head around it. Is that why she only ate like half her food, and does this mean she has to drink less blood? Lydia asked after drinking from her soda. She still could not get over how sweet it tasted and how bubbly it was. Not to mention the boost of energy she got from it. No, she's going to have to drink probably a little bit more blood than usual, but not much though. Izuku says as he rubs his face and already missing his beard. Speaking of blood, I'm quite thirsty. Hey, Izuku, do you mind if I borrow some of yours? Serena asked, a bit sheepish. You didn't bring any of your blood supplies with you? Izuku asked, looking at her with an incredulous gaze. I did, I just stored it all in one of those dimensional chests you can make, and since we're trying to have a low profile, if we summon a large wooden chest that is filled with large vials of blood, it will bring us unwanted attention. And we might be arrested for it as well. Serena said a bit more seriously but just as sheepish. Is your condition urgent, or can you wait until we get to the house where I can summon the chest? Izuku asked as he let out a long sigh of exasperation. It depends on how far is your home. Serena said, unsure. About 30 minutes. Izuku said as he tried to remember where his home exactly was. Even with his eidetic memory, it's been a very long time since he's been here. Izuku looked back at Serena and saw the clear signs of hunger in her eyes. He had seen this hunger many times before, especially when the two were working with the Dawn Guard. The Dawn Guard barely accepted her as it was, so getting a decent supply of blood was extremely hard. If it wasn't for Izuku's donation of blood and the unique situation that granted him the understanding that most people wouldn't even give her, she could have easily gone feral. I can wait then, but do you mind if we pick up the pace? Serena said after letting out a long sigh. A couple minutes later. Unfortunately, she was only able to make it halfway before she pulled Izuku into a deserted alley and sank her teeth into his neck. Knowing that it was just her instincts kicking in, he let it happen. But a couple of minutes in, he was starting to fear that she was going to drink him dry, but before he could say anything she loosened her grip on him and removed her fangs. I'm sorry, but I guess that I was a lot more thirsty than I thought, Serena said as she wiped her mouth of blood. It's all right, whatever that guy did to you probably took a lot out of your body. Izuku says, a little woozy from lack of blood. He then pulls out a potion that was made to replenish blood and drinks it. After a couple of seconds, he felt a lot better and spoke up. Anyway, we're almost to my house, so let's get going, Izuku says as he leads them out of the alley and to his home, and luckily enough without any more interruptions. As Izuku opened the door to his house, he could hear his mother in the kitchen. Walking in, he signals the girls to follow him. As they followed him, they closed the door behind them. Mom, I'm home and I brought guests, Izuku said as he called out to his mother. Hearing this, his mother exits the kitchen and enters the hallway to greet them. Izuku's breath hitched at the sight of his mother. He had not seen her in 10 whole years, so standing in front of her like nothing happened felt more like a dream than reality. But he was brought back to reality quite quickly, since the second that she saw two beautiful girls next to Izuku, she fainted. And then she started to mumble to herself about girlfriends and having many grandbabies. This caused Izuku and the other girls to blush heavily. When they finally got their blushes under control, they woke up Izuku's mother and explained what had happened to him. He told her about Tamriel, his adventures through the lands of Skyrim, about his two friends, and how they met. Throughout the whole conversation, his mother cried a literal river of tears and she fainted a couple dozen times. Especially when he showed off his prowess with magic. Now the four were sitting in the living room and allowing Inko to absorb all the information that they unloaded onto her. But eventually, Inko gathered herself, then looked at her son, and asked, "What's your plan now, Izuku?" Inko asked, knowing her son probably has a plan. Izuku scratched his cheek in thought, before speaking up. "Same as it was before, I want to become a hero," Izuku said, and seeing his mother's worried face, he continued. "No offense, Mom, I stopped the world from ending by defeating Alduin. I stopped a man's machinations that had 1,000 years of planning behind them. All for the sole purpose to block out the sun so he could plunge the world into eternal darkness. I fought and defeated literal dragons daily, among monsters that an average hero could not face. So you do not have to worry if anything. I am overqualified for the position. Heck, I could even defeat All Might if I wanted to, and that's not me being arrogant or anything. Izuku said with confidence, but seeing his mom's worried eyes he softened his gaze, then he looked at his mom with kind and understanding eyes. So you don't have to worry, Mom. I know you worried for me, especially after I was diagnosed as quirkless. But the first thing I learned while I was there was that quirkless does not mean worthless. Heck, Lydia here can still put me on my back during a spar and all she has is her skills with a blade and bow. Izuku said with a chuckle, which caused Lydia to blush heavily, which Inko noticed. Which caused her to smile devilishly. And is that the only time she puts you on your back? Inko asked in a teasing tone. This caused Izuku and the two girls in the room to blush heavily, and in return made Inko laugh. It took a good minute for the four to calm themselves again. After they did, Izuku decided to speak up again. Anyway, I think the first thing we will need to do is get a bigger place and some clothes for the girls. Izuku said thoughtfully. This caused Inko to frown a bit. Izuku, unfortunately, we do not have the money for a bigger place. Although I might have some clothes that might fit them in my closet. Inko says with a frown on her face. Izuku just smiled devilishly, with a wave of his hand and a burst of magic, a large wooden reinforced chest appeared and he opened it. Inside laid a large amount of gold bricks and a huge cache of sorted gems. Seeing a small fortune appear out of nowhere in front of her caused Inko to faint again. Which made Izuku let out a long sigh at seeing his mother. After bringing her around again, he continued with explaining his plans. As you can see, we have enough money and there's a lot more where this came from. Now while we are looking for a place to live, we're going to have to visit somebody and convince him to help us. Izuku said, but this confused Inko, who decided to voice it. And who is this person that we have to convince? Inko asked, her confusion evident. This question only caused Izuku to smile devilishly yet again. 1 week later at UA University. Principal Nizu just got out of one of his staff meetings that he sets up every 2 weeks. Nothing was discussed that was of major importance except for some transfers into the hero program to Class 1A. Thanks to the whole class being expelled on the first day by one of his teachers, they had a lot of slots open. Now he was heading straight to his office and hoping to get another cup of his favorite tea. As he entered his office, he had a nagging feeling in his head that something was off. He did not know what it was, but he knew there was something not right about his office. His instincts were telling him nothing was there, but his intelligence and skill to pay attention to detail told him otherwise. He did not want to risk it, so he was just about to head to his desk and press the silent alarm button that was hidden under it before a voice came out of nowhere. There is no point in engaging the silent alarm since I disabled it. After all, the things we need to discuss are too important to be interrupted. The voice of Serena said as it came out of nowhere. The voice was female and quite young, a middle schooler perhaps. The question is, how did she get into my school, and more importantly, how did she get into my office without detection? Nizu thought to himself with a bit of nervousness and curiosity. Then do you mind telling me what was so important to discuss with me? That you needed to infiltrate my school and sneak into my office? Nizu asked, stone-faced. But the invisible occupants in the room could tell that he was on the defensive. An audible sigh could be heard from the corner of the room. Serena, I told you disabling the silent alarm would be too much. Now he thinks we're intruders, the voice of Lydia said in a deadpan tone. Nizu analyzed the voice and guessed she must have been the same age as the other one or close to it. Lydia first, we are intruders, unfortunately, and Serena was right to disable the silent alarm since it was obvious he was going straight for it. The voice of Izuku spoke out this time. Nizu could tell that it was male and it had to be the same age as the other two. Yeah, but it's not our fault that son of a fetcher of a secretary is a milk drinker. When we called the school to schedule a meeting with him, once she realized that we didn't have one of these quirks, she hung up on us. Lydia said, quite frustrated. Nizu was a little peeved. Apparently, these three individuals snuck in because his secretary refused to schedule a meeting with them because of their quirk status. As an educator, somebody's quirk status did not matter to him. All that matters is that they were able to learn and improve themselves. But with that said, if these three individuals don't have a quirk, how are they invisible, and why go to such lengths to speak with him? Then I apologize for my secretary's actions. Since you went to many lengths to speak with me, may I assume it's very important, and if that's the case I can spare a couple of minutes, but do you mind showing yourselves? I like to see who I'm talking to, Nizu said as he went to his desk and sat down. Pouring himself some tea, he waits patiently for their answer. Yeah, I don't mind, but unfortunately one of us is going to stay invisible because she can't turn it off herself, unlike the two of us, Izuku said as he and Serena decloaked. Seeing the two teenagers reveal themselves, Nizu looks at them with an analyzing gaze. The first one he looked at was Serena, and even though she was obviously 14, he quickly noticed how she held herself, which gave the impression that she was quite experienced and perhaps older than she looked. And also didn't help that her blue slitted eyes made his instincts go off. Although that did not bother him, since it was quite similar when he was in the presence of a person with a predatorial animal quirk. As she got closer and sat down on the couch, his gaze shifted to the boy. His fluffy green hair and slim but muscular build that was accented by the tight short-sleeve shirt gave Nizu the impression that he was well trained. Add to the fact that his aura of power reminded him of All Might's gave him quite a presence. I see, is that her quirk to make people turn invisible, and the drawback is she's unable to do it to herself? It would make sense how you got in here, Nizu asked as he calmly sipped his tea. No, as you probably picked up already, none of us have what you call quirks. Me and Izuku here use a spell that turns us invisible, while Lydia used a potion to do it, and because of that she's on a timer and unable to turn it off until that timer runs out. Although I am quite impressed that you even noticed us. I guess Izu was right about your intelligence and observational skills. Even though you couldn't see through our illusions, you could simply see around them, Serena said, making Nizu quirk an eyebrow with a confused and curious expression on his face. Seeing this, Izuku began to speak. Okay, let me explain. A week ago I was hit by an unknown quirk by an unknown person. It sent me to a different universe, and there, quirks do not exist. Instead, they have magic, creatures that come straight from a fantasy novel, and their technological level is around the Middle Ages. I spent 10 years over there until I was able to find my way back. When I did, I brought my two companions with me, and all of us became 14 again, among other things, Izuku said, completely serious. Assuming you have proof of this, why did you come to me? Nizu asked as he hums to himself. Izuku just smiled brightly at him. Casting a spell that conjured a chest, he got up and opened it. The chest was full of old and worn down stuff that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. Rummaging around in the chest for a second, he picked up an old and worn-down notebook labeled Hero Analysis for the Future 13. He opened it up, turned to Nizu's page, and placed it in front of him. Ever since I was a small kid, quirks fascinated me, and when I found out I was quirkless I started analyzing them. Honestly, I do not know why I started to do it. A part of me wanted to drown my insecurities by focusing my mind on a constant task, and the other was out of a pure fascination and borderline obsession. When I got older I thought this skill would help me become a hero, so I doubled down on it. During that time I found out about you and your quirk, which resulted in 5 pages of that notebook dedicated to you. As you can see, I didn't just analyze your quirk, I analyzed you as a whole. Your personality, your habits, your possible species. Now because of that research, I feel that you're the only one who would even listen to us without dismissing us as being crazy. Izuku said, as he sat back down after dismissing the chest. Nizu was impressed with the analysis of him, and the kid had a point. Any other hero would have just dismissed him. This kid was banking on his intelligent mind, wanting to know answers before making any judgment. I'm impressed with your analytical skills, and you're right. Given my nature, I'm probably one of the only people who would take you seriously. However, I'm going to need proof of your claims and exactly what you want from me. Nizu said with his tone serious, but his face and posture are more relaxed. He was positive now that these kids had no intention of harming him. And if they were telling the truth, he was probably the only one who could possibly help them. Well, you just saw me use a spell to summon a chest, and I can demonstrate more spells if you want. I'm also willing to submit myself to any test to determine that I am indeed quirkless. What I want is your help. You see, my 2 friends are not on any records since they're from a different universe, and since we're planning on attending UA as hero students in 6 months. I thought it would be better to be transparent with you from the start. I also need help with some transactions. You see, I brought a lot with me that I need help selling, especially since we're going to need some cash to get a bigger place. The 3 of us and my mom are currently living in a very small apartment. Izuku said as he scratched his chin. What do I get out of this? Don't get me wrong, I am a hero, and I do not mind helping you to the best of my ability. But altering public records, which I assume you want me to do discreetly, is no small thing to ask. Nizu asked, narrowing his eyes. Hearing this, Izuku becomes serious. I expected this. What I'm willing to offer is my knowledge of magic. I am willing to teach your students this art and possibly the other teachers. Either during my years as a student or sometime after I established myself as a promising hero. But I choose my students and who I teach. This is non-negotiable. Izuku said with a tone that broke no room for argument. Nizu's eyes sparkled at the possibilities for a second before he schooled himself. This boy may be playing him if his analysis is anything to go by. I'll need to think about this. Is there a way for me to contact you to schedule another meeting? Nizu asked as he rubs his chin in thought. Izuku nodded and pulled out a scroll. This is a spell scroll. These are for people who do not know how to use magic. Simply think of me while holding the scroll and say the words "cast sending." It will create a temporary telepathic link between us. Please note that this only has one use. I also recommend you do not try to replicate it in any way, you will not like the outcome. Izuku says, handing over the scroll. Taking it from his hands, he carefully unfurls it and starts looking at it with an analytic gaze. After a few seconds, he looks up to dismiss them but sees that his guests are gone. Looking around, he noticed that he did not feel that weird feeling that he had when he first entered his office. Putting down the scroll on his desk, he presses the intercom button to call his secretary in. There are a lot of things I need to do. But first things first, I need to reprimand one of my employees. Nizu thought with a sadistic smile.
Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!